The Zulu Kingdom, now deeply divided, was caught in a downward spiral. The protracted engagement with Sikujana's forces distracted Shaka from essential governance issues that had once united his subjects. As communities banded together to form local defenses, Shaka's dream of a cohesive kingdom seemed increasingly distant. Amidst the chaos, death and destruction plagued the countryside. Fields were left untended, trade suffered, and civilians were caught in the crossfire. Shaka, desperate to quell the suffering he had inadvertently caused, began to adopt more conciliatory measures towards those who had resisted his authority. He initiated peace talks with Sikujana, hoping to find common ground. This endeavor revealed Shaka's inner turmoil. He was a conqueror faced with the prospect of negotiating with rebels, potential allies, and brothers. His willingness to adapt and rebuild would be pivotal in determining the future structure of the Zulu Kingdom. In the wake of continuing conflict, Shaka recognized that military might alone could not restore peace. He dispatched his most trusted advisors to the factions rallying around Sikujana, seeking viable terms that could end the violence and heal divisions. During these negotiations, Shaka emphasized the need for a renewed vision that embraced both traditional governance and the benefits of centralized rule. While many leaders remained suspicious of Shaka's motives, a temporary ceasefire was declared. This pause allowed Shaka to present his ideas for a new governance framework that intertwined traditional authority with modern administration, aiming to honor the customs of the people while maintaining the structures necessary for unity. Sikujana, seeing an opportunity to bring his interests into the open, reluctantly agreed to attend the discussions. It was a critical moment that could either lead to reconciliation or further conflict, a crossroads that would define the future of the Zulu Kingdom. The discussions between Shaka and Sikujana revealed a complex dynamic. Both men cared deeply for the Zulu people, yet their visions for the kingdom clashed. Shaka recognized that he could no longer dictate terms without input from traditional leaders, while Sikujana began to see the potential benefits of a unified Zulu kingdom. As they deliberated, an unlikely alliance began to take shape. Under Shaka's vision, the traditional chieftains would retain certain powers and local control, while also participating in a council that guided decisions impacting the greater kingdom. This compromise would still allow Shaka to lead, while acknowledging the importance of traditional structures. The meetings deepened the dialogue within the kingdom and allowed for various perspectives to emerge. Slowly, other factions began to participate, aiming to articulate their concerns and desires. With active participation, both leaders hoped to galvanize support from their followers, forging a collective identity, one that harnessed old loyalties while embracing a modern vision. Many felt this process was required to secure perceptive vision or choice. Despite the hopeful signs of reconciliation, the challenges of restoring unity were immense. Political strife persisted as not everyone embraced the new approach. Hardliners among Sikujana's followers rejected any compromise that seemed to concede authority to the Zulu crown, insisting instead on a complete return to traditional rule. Tensions flared as the public's trust wavered. Safeguarding the kingdom had created a schism between those who sought to uphold tradition and those who recognized the evolving landscape of their society. The negotiations illustrated just how fractured the Zulu identity had become. Once characterized by unity, it now grappled with conflicting visions of the future. To make matters worse, external forces began circling. Word of the internal discord reached neighboring tribes, encouraging hostile actions. Raids from rival groups disrupted communities, pushing Shaka and Sikujana to consider how their joint leadership could safeguard the kingdom from outside threats. Understanding that stability was paramount, Shaka and Sikujana worked diligently to present a united front against external threats. They called for a grand assembly of clans, inviting leaders from across the kingdom to participate in dialogues regarding defense, collaboration, and unity. The assembly provided a platform for communities to voice their concerns and aspirations. Shaka took the opportunity to emphasize the importance of collective strength in the face of adversity. he proposed the formation of a unified defense force that would incorporate warriors from all clans, thereby re-establishing a Zulu identity rooted in solidarity. As discussions unfolded, unity began to take shape within the assembly, though not without resistance. Empowered by both Shaka's vision and the traditional connection Sikujana held, the leaders ultimately forged a renewed commitment to protect the kingdom from outside interference. This collaborative spirit rekindled hope, even as the journey toward full reconciliation remained rife with challenges. As the smoke of conflict began to clear, the Zulu Kingdom stood at a crossroads. Shaka Zulu's vision for a unified kingdom had undergone serious scrutiny. Yet he understood that his experience, marked by struggles, betrayals, resistance, and ultimately the fragility of leadership, was a testament to the resilience of those he ruled. With a joint resolve among his leaders, Shaka and Sikujana committed to rebuilding relationships. Though the path was fraught with challenges, they recognized that true strength lay not just in military prowess, but in the hearts and minds of the people they shared purpose. Establishing a council that tested in the fires of betrayal was slowly reborn. They worked toward embodying a collective identity shaped by both its traditional roots and the forward-looking vision that Shaka had fought so hard to cultivate. The journey was by no means over, but the foundations upon which the future Zulu Kingdom would thrive were now stronger than ever, promising a new era in which the combined legacies of both Shaka and Sikujana would coalesce into a unified Zulu identity. In the winter of 1827, a dark shadow fell over the Zulu Kingdom as transformed into an all-beloved mother succumbed to illness. Shaka withdrew her death struck life, Shaka with a force into the confines of his thoughts. Nandi memories of his not just a mother, but a pillar of strength. Nandi had always advised Shaka to temper ambition with compassion. The bond they shared was the roots from which he'd in both love and the shared vision of a strong guiding voice of his conscience faded, leaving a void that would deepen with his growing sense of loss. As news of Nandi's death spread, the kingdom mourned. Festivals and celebrations were ordered to halt, and the once vibrant atmosphere of the Zulu capital turned somber. Shaka, in his grief, began to isolate himself, afraid that his emotional vulnerability could be perceived as weakness, a dangerous position for a ruler whose power relied on unwavering strength. In the months following his mother's death, Shaka's mind began a slow descent into paranoia. Isolated from counsel and advice, he became increasingly suspicious of those around him, unable to distinguish between genuine loyalty and potential treachery. The once beloved ruler began perceiving shadows in the corners of his court, suspecting plots against him even among the most trusted of allies. His grief curdled into rage as he imagined adversaries lurking everywhere, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. What had once been sharp strategic insight became clouded by suspicion. The foundation he had built of trust among his people and allies eroded with each passing day. Those who had once gladly operated under his command now felt the tightening grip of Shaka's fears, which transformed into ruthless governance. In his paranoia, he enacted harsh punishments against even the slightest perceived disloyalty. Those who voiced caution found themselves eliminated or exiled, furthering the cycle of distrust and fear. The very fabric of the kingdom began to unravel as the loyalty that had once bound the Zulu people to their king faltered under the weight of his mental decline. As Shaka spiraled deeper into his paranoia, key figures within his court began to plot their escape from his tightening grip. Under his increasingly tyrannical rule, alliances formed not from shared loyalty, but rather from fear of reprisal. The whispers of dissent grew louder as trusted advisors began to distance themselves, fearing Shaka's wrath. Among those closest to him, one figure caught Shaka's attention. Mbopa, his childhood friend and advisor, who had once been an unwavering source of support. Limited by Shaka's mistrust and observing the swelling resentment of the people, Mbopa began to consider the implications of opposing Shaka openly. He sought opportunities to create a network that could counter Shaka's erratic behavior, uncertain of where loyalty should lie amidst the chaos. The growing distance between Shaka and his former supporters prompted resentment that festered in the shadows. This division became more pronounced when a series of scathing criticisms from factions of the warriors emerged, denouncing Shaka's rule as oppressive and tyrannical. The harsh reality that his inner circle was disintegrating would soon bear consequences that he could not have anticipated. Shaka's paranoia reached a fever pitch as he sensed betrayal encircling him. Days turned into restless nights filled with hallucinations and visions of treachery. He began to isolate himself further, surrounding his royal compound with a heightened number of guards, convinced that his life was in constant danger. It was during this turbulent period that the regicide plot, a culmination of resentment and desperation, began to take shape among Shaka's trusted allies. Mbofa, torn between loyalty to his friend and the safety of the kingdom, found himself at the center of this conspiracy. A faction of Zulu warriors, disillusioned by Shaka's violent purges and mental decline, sought to end the reign of a king who had become a shadow of his former self. As the plot progressed, Mbofa struggled with his conscience, seeking to balance his commitment to the Zulu people with his long-standing friendship with Shaka. The escalating situation created a moral chasm as the line between loyalty and betrayal blurred, revealing the complexity of human relationships in times of crisis. While the darkness of betrayal loomed over Shaka's reign, the Zulu Kingdom entered a period of instability. The agricultural yield plummeted and resources dwindled. The harvests that once sustained the kingdom became insufficient as Shaka's attention diverted to silencing perceived threats rather than confronting the pressing needs of his people. Rumors of discontent spread throughout the land, and various factions began to rise against him, emboldened by the growing schism within the Zulu royal court. As some clans questioned why they should remain loyal to a king who no longer appeared to care for their welfare, others strained under the yoke of taxation meant to maintain a royal guard, increasingly staffed with suspicion-riddled warriors. The ripple effects of Shaka's tyranny reached every pocket of his kingdom. Discontent turned into palpable anger, igniting discussions about resistance among the tribes. Conversations among warriors shifted from loyalty to Shaka to dreams of establishing a more democratic control, where the tribal chiefs wielded authority, allowing for greater representation and cooperation. The tensions within the kingdom reached a tipping point. During a gathering of the warriors, leaders from various clans met secretly to discuss the pressing need for change. Recognizing that Shaka's regime had morphed into a nightmare of oppression and fear, led by Mbofa, the council deliberated on how to peacefully approach the king with their concern. Yet, the gathering was not without risk. Word of the clandestine meetings began to circulate, drawing the ire of Shaka, who viewed the council as a direct threat to his authority. Shaka unveiled his suspicions publicly during a military parade, branding those present at the meeting as traitors to the kingdom and ordering their arrest. As the clashing sentiments ignited a civil conflict within the heart of the Zulu Kingdom, many found themselves torn between reverence for a once great leader and the promise of a fairer governance structure. The division became stark as armed factions took to the field, willing to risk everything to dethrone a king who had turned his back on the very ideals he once cherished. As civil unrest reached dangerous levels, Shaka's reign fell into chaos. Still enveloped in paranoia, he launched vicious counterstrikes against those he considered enemies. His forces raided villages, detaining suspected rebels and executing perceived traitors. The brutality of his actions only fueled the fires of rebellion across the kingdom. In his heart of darkness, Shaka irrefutably lost touch with the trust and loyalty he had once commanded. The warriors who had fought valiantly for him were now greatly diminished, disillusioned by their king's regress. What had once been a formidable army increasingly fractured, with factions breaking away to align with the growing number of enemies gathering against him. Above all, Shaka's relationship with his family deteriorated. Once a source of strength, the tensions stemming from the betrayal at the hands of allies and the stress within the ranks created rifts that could not be mended. Relationships that once flourished now fell apart, with Shaka being haunted by his own family's churning loyalties. In a confluence of desperation and ambition, Mbopa, viewing no alternative, finally made the decision to align openly with the rebel forces seeking to oust Shaka from power. He was driven by a painful sense of loyalty to the Zulu people, who had suffered for far too long under Shaka's troubled reign. With the support of other clans and enough followers bolstered by discontent towards Shaka's tyranny, Mbopa prepared to lead a final assault on the royal stronghold. As he gathered forces under the banner of change, another significant figure emerged. Ngomane, Shaka's cousin and an influential warrior who rallied support to join forces with Mbopa's rebellion. All within reason, Altimar Adana. Despite the many warnings Shaka continued to receive about the impending charge, he remained cut off from the reality that had unfolded outside his walls. The loyalty of those who had stood with him since the beginning had dwindled, and the stage was set for a catastrophic confrontation. On the eve of battle, the linked fates of Shaka and those who had betrayed him converged. Knowing that his once steadfast kingdom was fracturing at the seams, Shaka, now unstable and paranoid, resolved to defend what was left of his authority at any cost. He gathered his loyal warriors and prepared for the impending. As dawn broke, a fierce battle erupted outside the gates of his fortress. Warriors who had once proudly fought by Shaka's side clashed against him, their cries of rage and desperation echoing through the valley. Shaka found himself facing atrocities wrought by his own decisions, tragically aware that he was now fighting against friends and family who had won. In a critical moment, Shaka confronted Mbopa and Ngomane in the chaos. Their hearts longed for the king they once knew, but they could no longer abide his rule. The fray culminated in a definitive confrontation, a painful reflection of dreams gone awry. With his heart heavy with grief and paranoia, Shaka fought fiercely but ultimately fell as the once crowned protector of the Zulu Kingdom succumbed to betrayal. Shaka Zulu met his tragic end in the battle that had become the symbol of a fractured kingdom. His death did not merely mark the end of a ruler, but reverberated throughout the land as a stark warning about the price of unchecked ambition, loss, and isolation. In the wake of the conflict, the Zulu Kingdom that had once stood unified began to reforge itself anew. With Shaka's passing, Mbopa and Ngomane worked diligently to heal the wounds of division, striving to build a more democratic governance that honored tradition while reflecting the interests of its people. Shaka's legacy became a complex tapestry woven from the threads of visionary leadership, interwoven with the shadows of tyranny. People remembered him as both a great unifier and a tragic king consumed by paranoia and betrayal. As the new Zulu leaders navigated the tumultuous task of rebuilding, they carried the lessons of Shaka's reign with them, the importance of compassion, the necessity of trust, and the profound consequences that arise when a ruler loses sight of the very people he wishes to lead. Thus began a new chapter in the history of the Zulu Kingdom, forever shaped by the tragic fall of a once great king. The news of Shaka Zulu's fall was met with a mixture of triumph and sorrow across the fractured kingdom. Some celebrated the end of a reign that had grown tyrannical, while others mourned the loss of a leader who had once been a unifying force. In the chaos that followed his assassination, remnants of loyalty to Shaka struggled to maintain their place within a rapidly changing landscape. As tensions lingered in the aftermath of battle, the leadership of the Zulu Kingdom faced a daunting challenge. It had to reconcile the disparate factions that had emerged during Shaka's reign and the subsequent insurrection. With Mbopa and Ngomane at the forefront, the new leaders sought to establish a government that would embrace the principles of unity and inclusivity. Drawing lessons from the tumultuous events that culminated in Shaka's tragic demise. But as they began to chart a new course, news of Shaka's assassination spread beyond the borders of the Zulu Kingdom. The implications reverberated across southern Africa, indicating a shift in power dynamics and igniting uncertainty among neighboring tribes. The effects of Shaka's innovations and his remarkable prowess in battle would continue to influence not just the Zulu Kingdom, but the politics and warfare of the entire region, for generations to come. In the wake of Shaka's death, the kingdom splintered into factions, each seeking to claim influence and power. Some former allies and even members of the royal family saw this division as an opportunity to carve out their own territories, leading to an era of strife reminiscent of the civil conflicts Shaka himself had faced. The central authority that he had built over years began to disintegrate, resulting in clan rivalries and power struggles that would define the Zulu Kingdom for years to come. While Mbopa and Ngomane aimed to restore balance and create a more representative leadership, their efforts were constantly challenged by those who remembered the glory days of Shaka's reign. Clans that had once rallied behind a single banner began to assert their independence, with local chieftains emerging as power players unbound by the centralized authority that Shaka had sought to establish. In their efforts to negotiate peace and governance, Mbopa and Ngomane realized that the greatest challenge would not only be to unify the kingdom, but to heal the deep emotional and political scars left by Shaka's oppressive rule. The new leaders worked tirelessly to facilitate dialogues among rival factions, seeking to create a system of governance that could honor both tradition and the necessity of collective progress. Despite the fracturing of the Zulu Kingdom, the legacy of Shaka Zulu echoed through the annals of history. His innovations in military strategy, the infamous use of the horns of the buffalo formation, and the incorporation of tightly knit regiments transformed the face of African warfare. Other tribes, witnessing the results of Shaka's bold strategies, sought to emulate his military prowess, leading to shifts in the balance of power across the continent. The strategies Shaka pioneered were not merely about the battlefield. They also fostered a shift in how leadership was conceived among African tribal communities. His emphasis on discipline and unity became a guiding force for future leaders, emphasizing the importance of collaboration and strategic vision. With tales of his battlefield brilliance disseminated through oral traditions, the model of leadership he embodied influenced generations to come, inspiring both admiration and resentment. Scholars and warriors alike would recount his life as a study in contrasts, the fierce warrior whose ambitions unified a kingdom, ultimately leading to his tragic undoing. This duality would leave a lasting imprint on African cultures, as community leaders navigated the complexities of wisdom, power, and the intricate balance of loyalty and authority in a time marked by upheaval. Shaka's innovations in warfare reached far beyond the Zulu Kingdom. His restructuring of the traditional army into a formidable fighting force showcased new levels of organization and presented a model that many tribes would adopt in their efforts to thrive in an increasingly hostile environment. The introduction of the short stabbing spear, the ikla, revolutionized combat, making battles more efficient and direct, allowing warriors to engage opponents up close rather than relying solely on ranged weapons. Other tribes, influenced by Shaka's military techniques, began to shape their own formations and strategies. The buffalo horns maneuver, which involved encircling the enemy with both the horns and the chest of a formation, became widely adopted, inspiring a new era of strategic combat that emphasized speed, accuracy, and adaptability in the face of changing conditions on the battlefield. This focus on innovative practices extended into leadership dynamics, where the traits of decisive command and tactical flexibility began to define how warriors and chiefs governed their territories. Younger leaders emerged, inspired by Shaka's legacy, to embrace new methods of leadership, ones that valued intelligence and collaboration over sheer force alone. In the midst of the fractures within the Zulu Kingdom, new leaders began to rise, who embraced Shaka's legacy while also recognizing the necessity of change. Mbopa and Ngomane's commitment to fostering inclusivity generated a new wave of Zulu leadership, responsive to the aspirations of the people and the complex needs of their land. As the dismemberment of the kingdom continued, these new leaders explored decentralized governance, encouraging local chieftains to establish councils that would guide their communities while promoting cooperation among clans. This marked a significant cultural shift, leading to engagements and discussions that fostered unity, a stark contrast to the autocratic tendencies of Shaka's reign. Moreover, the establishment of matrilineal leadership witnessed in several clans began to unfold in Zulu culture, inspired by the memory of strong women like Nandi. Women were increasingly seen not just as caretakers, but as influential decision-makers whose perspectives contributed to the overall strength of their communities. Through this evolution, the Zulu Kingdom transformed into a complex tapestry of diverse voices and collaborative efforts, honoring the legacies of both its greatest leader and the warriors who had fought alongside him. As time passed, the story of Shaka Zulu became enshrined in the oral traditions of the Zulu people. His legacy was recounted through epic tales, illustrating both his triumphs and his tragic flaws. Bards and storytellers shared narratives of his courage, ambition, and the innovation that had propelled the Zulu Kingdom to greatness, juxtaposed with the shadow of tyranny that ultimately led to his undoing. The new leaders of the Zulu Kingdom recognized the importance of these tales, not merely as records of history, but as vibrant lessons in leadership, resilience, and community building. They worked to ensure that the stories remained vibrant and relevant, fostering a culture that valued both tradition and transformation. These narratives also served as cautionary tales, highlighting the dangers of unchecked ambition and the need for leaders to remain steadfastly connected to their people. Shaka became a figure of both admiration and warning, an enduring reminder of the delicate balance that leaders must navigate between strength and tyranny. With the emergence of new leaders and renewed governance, the days of strife began to yield to cooperative efforts across the Zulu Kingdom. The memory of Shaka gave birth to a sense of collective purpose, as clans that had once waged war upon one another found common ground. Festivals were organized to celebrate not just the history of Shaka, but the resilience of the Zulu people, incorporating traditional dances, songs, and storytelling as a means of fostering communal ties. The arts experienced a renaissance as the culture responded to the call for unity, honing a narrative that acknowledged both the pain of division and the promise of collaboration. These efforts yielded new alliances among clans, which worked together to fend off external threats, notably from colonial forces eyeing the rich resources of the region, expanding the Zulu identity beyond mere territorial claims. They sought to cultivate diplomacy and trade with neighboring tribes, understanding that strength lay in both solidarity and cooperation, which had eluded Shaka during the darker days of his reign. As the Zulu Kingdom found its footing again, the strategic innovations introduced by Shaka Zulu influenced regional warfare in profound ways. Many tribes in southern Africa adopted similar tactics and formations, shifting not only how battles were waged, but also how armies organized and interacted. The concept of organized regiments, much like the Zulu Empire system, spread, impacting neighboring communities and leading to enhanced military organization. Tribes that had once relied solely on individual warrior prowess began to understand the importance of cohesion and collective action, shaping the battlefields of Africa for years to come. Historically, Shaka's impact on African warfare would be studied by future leaders, military strategists, and scholars, influencing not only those who fought in traditional contexts, but also those who sought to protect sovereignty in the face of colonial incursions. The legacy of Shaka Zulu, intertwined with the history of the Zulu Kingdom, became symbolic of the ebb and flow of power. The rise and fall of leadership created an understanding that strength could be both unifying and divisive. In the years that followed, leaders emerged who sought to balance ambition with wisdom, reflecting on Shaka's journey as a way to navigate the complexities of their time. New dynasties emerged within the Zulu Kingdom, drawing from the wisdom of predecessor leaders while also innovating in governance. The pattern of ascent and decline became a multifaceted story, reminding future leaders that power held both promise and peril. A lesson that transcended borders and echoed throughout history. By weaving stories of both triumph and caution, the Zulu and other African communities forged paths forward, embracing adaptability while paying homage to the complexities that shaped their identities. Shaka Zulu's legacy, marked by brilliance and tragedy, became forever etched in the cultural consciousness of Southern Africa. The Zulu Kingdom transformed from the ashes of autocracy and civil discord, shaped into a resilient community that continued to honor their history and innovate in leadership, as future generations sought to align themselves with the teachings of Shaka. Whether as warriors, leaders, or defenders of their tribes, his name resonated throughout the continent. Schools of thought emerged dedicated to examining and celebrating the tapestry of African leadership, taking cues from Shaka's life story that highlighted the vital mix of valor, humility, and community engagement. The overall lesson from Shaka's narrative served as a constant reminder that true leadership transcends the lust for power. It thrives in compassion, collaboration, and respect for the voices of the people. As the Zulu Kingdom rose again, it carried with it the essence of a legacy that shaped not just its own future, but also enriched the broader narrative of African history in ways that would resonate for centuries to come. We dive deeper into the incredible tale of Shaka Zulu and explore the legacies of legendary figures throughout history. From the rise and fall of great leaders to the profound lessons they left behind, our channel brings you captivating stories that inspire and educate. Hit the subscribe button now and join us on a journey through time where we uncover the triumphs and trials of the world's most fascinating legends. Don't miss out. Your next great adventure awaits.